to prove them all wrong again. I got a low tolerance, cause they don't even know what the problem is. It's me. You waiting on the boy to fail, to hold your breath and face your death. Cause you play a roulette with each step. I progress, no less. Go ahead and place your bets. Cause we know who we at, we know we top tier. Cause all the hate that you bring, we know it stops here. I'm taking off like a rocket here, ain't stopping here. It's strange how they cannot see the future, but see profit here. Wait up, we gon' always win. Tell 'em I can't take no loss. My team hold no L's, no. Aiming for the top, can't make it by myself.
Welcome back. It is a Wednesday show. And we're going to roll right off the tail end of yesterday's stuff, which I was really excited to get into. Obviously very angry to bring you the sale of Sitco to Paul Singer. Okay, obviously I was extremely angry about that. I hope I made you angry. But again, clear eyes. And at the end of yesterday's show, we got into why Greenland, and I just didn't want to put it off. I wanted to get into it immediately. And I'm glad I did, because it was a precursor to what I'm going to bring you today. Because we really, really need to seriously talk about what might happen with Greenland. When it was first brought up, it was a bit of a joke. It was lumped in with Gulf of America talk, right? And certain reporters being kicked out of the press room because they wouldn't refer to it correctly. Right in that news cycle was Trump's wild and frivolous claims of we need Greenland. Well, sometimes we got to take what this guy says seriously. And even when people around him try to say the right things and stem the tide of pushback, he comes out and he says the quiet parts out loud. He just keeps riffing off the top of his, cognitively declining brain, just right off the top of his head. He just says things, and this was one of those things, and they tried to cover up, they tried to laugh it off, they tried to play it off, but here we are. Here we are talking about it seriously, because that is what the situation now demands of us. And speaking of demands, we're going to open up what we're going to tell you about Greenland today and appraise you of the situation. We're going to bring you up to speed on what's happening with Greenland, but we have to precursor that with a look back at something we covered about a month or two ago, something like that. It was maybe 2 months ago when the National Security Strategy was released. At the time, the National Security Strategy, which is released every year by the administration, it is an overview of our posture globally, domestically, economically, technologically, what we want to happen, how we feel about our allies, how we feel about our adversaries, the current domestic situation. It was an overview, usually pretty optimistic, usually fairly homogenous. Not really something to talk about or bring up in the news cycle, but not this year. Or last year, rather. Not last year. The National Security Strategy took a serious change in tone last year under this second Trump administration. And what we're seeing in Greenland and Venezuela is right on schedule. They told us what they were going to be doing. Time and again, they tell us what they're going to be doing. And it's so outrageous, outlandish, nonsensical that we don't pay it the deference that we need to pay it in terms of how important is this actually? How much should we be digging into what they're saying and take it seriously? Well, last year's National Security Strategy was one of those times where we really should be taking what they're saying here in this document seriously, because now it is absolutely playing out according to schedule. The core tenets of the National Security Strategy were basically peace through strength, America first, always, baby, America, and a focus on what's good for the U.S., a hyper focus on U.S. interest. U.S. interests and power will be leading our national security strategy going forward, at least for the next 3 years. And we are seeing that now. They talked about in this strategy, Homeland Security and borders, right? A stepping up of our infrastructure and our security apparatus to protect Americans, protect our borders. That was big. A giant middle finger to our European allies, that was central. And little hints being dropped here and there, little messages being sent to some of the more fringe nations in NATO and UN by extension. Hey, you know, those major nations in NATO, they don't represent you. They don't represent you. Immigration is a big problem in Europe. And as far as security goes, you can't just rely. You can't rely on the United States all the time. We may not be there. We may not be there unless you come deal with us. So we'll tell you what we'll do. We'll send you one of our handpicked advisors in your next election. And we'll guide you on the tenets of Trumpism. You get a Trump-friendly, Trump-like, pseudo-Trump leader in your country, and then, oh man, you can come make a deal. We'll make your borders tight. We'll make your economy strong. Your technology will be advanced. And your country will be as conservative as hell, and your media will be repressed. Your adversaries will be pursued. Come try it. See how it's working for Don over here? We can bring this brand of government to your home. You don't need NATO. That was one of the overriding themes of our foreign policy. A giant middle finger to the major European allies in NATO, UK, Germany, France. Major middle finger to them. But there were other things in the national security strategy that we are now seeing practically play out. And that was the Donroe Doctrine portion, focusing on the Western Hemisphere. Security, economic security, stability. Fighting the drug trade, the human trafficking trade, international crime, okay? Forced, of course. The Donroe Doctrine we are seeing play out very, very clearly. Much of what was in the national security strategy, by the way, is laughably hypocritical. Laughably. Like the mentioning of the drug trade and facilitating international crime. Going after Maduro being an example of this philosophy while you pardon Juan Orlando Hernandez, a man responsible for 400 plus tons of cocaine moving through the United States. You pardon him. Where was that strategy laid out in the national security document? I'm just curious. How does that tie into stemming the tide of drug, human trafficking, and international crime? I'm just curious. Much of it is laughable now. But Venezuelans aren't laughing. Maduro's not laughing. The Prime Minister of Denmark is not laughing. Although much of this is laughable. A lot of what the national security strategy focused on was anti-China rhetoric and sentiment. Knowing that they are our major economic adversary on a global scale and weakening their impact in the Western Hemisphere. More of that Donroe Doctrine. And as we laid out here on this show, China is so heavily dug in Venezuela. They built their infrastructure. They built their internet. They built their phone lines. They have, and Russia as well, has poured millions and millions of dollars into the well-being and the running of Venezuela, trying to foster a relationship in this mineral and oil-rich country. Unstable, chaotic, in need of help. Getting them out of Venezuela was a big, big step. Maduro was very, very friendly with Beijing and Moscow. Looked and turned to them for advice, intelligence, and monetary help, military help. All of what we're seeing is right on schedule. It's right on schedule. Critics, they definitely went hard at the new national security strategy. They said it was a wild break from the normal, traditional U.S. foreign policy. And many analysts, they criticized the confrontational nature. The might makes right. Power through strength. Kick your allies in the teeth. Posture of this document. And, it states what the U.S. wants. Its wants, its hopes. the resilient infrastructure. And here's the thing, not everything is black and white. Some of what is laid out in terms of what the U.S. should strive for is founded, is warranted. I mean, I have no problem beefing up our infrastructure to protect us from foreign threats, cyber attacks, terrorist threats across our border, incursions, anything like that. Sure, you want to strengthen the border. You want to make our immigration policy tighter, more efficient. Fine. Don't forget Biden tried to do that. And the Republicans were instructed to shoot down his border bill. I know my audience remembers that. MAGA definitely forgot that very quickly. That didn't ping on their radar. But we tried to do a lot of this under the Biden administration. But being a world-leading military, that is a want. That is a need, a goal of the United States, according to this document. Being number one in military advancement, technological advancement, chip sales, chip development. I have no problem with any of these things, to be honest with you, either. You want to make our military stronger, make it stronger, but do the right things with it. Influence who needs to be influenced with strength. Send the message without the hypocritical, just totally contradictory actions we've seen just recently, deposing and arresting Maduro, accusing him of being the leader of a gang that didn't exist, accusing him of trafficking into the United States a drug that doesn't get made in his country, while pardoning Juan Orlando Hernandez, the disgraced, drug-dealing, fraudulently elected president of Honduras. I just can't say it enough, and I'm going to harp on it and circle back to it and mention it as much as I need to. And I had a chance, by the way, to confront certain Republican elements that I have been in contact with through the internet, other means conversation, and I get a lot of pushback on a lot of stuff that I have problems with Trump's policy. But you know what has given me zero pushback is when I mention Juan Orlando Hernandez. None of them push it back. What I get from them then is, well, he's not perfect. I don't agree with it. Bad luck. They don't even try to do the gymnastics necessary. Kerry Strug couldn't pull off those gymnastics. Not even close. They don't even try. They file it under, okay, this one we have no defense. None is to be had. We have to concede this one thing. But that makes us seem more reasonable, right? If we as MAGA defend every aspect of Trumpian policy except that one pardoning, well, with the acceptance that the pardoning was bad look, we seem to be more open to conversation. Hey, we can admit it. We can admit it. Trump did bad here. We're reasonable. We see things clearly as well. No. I'm not going to be fooled. You don't defend the Hernandez pardoning because it is absolutely indefensible. And it flies in the face of our brand new national security strategy. Flies right in the face, and I will bring it up again and again and again. This document talks about cultural and societal health. Are you kidding me? They want all MAGA all the time.
It's time for a quick break, then we break some more. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things, pushing back, speaking up, and holding the line.
This thing right here. This is what we're talking about. This is what we're talking about. The national security strategy. This bad boy. Yeah, 33 pages. Thank you, Scotty. And here's the sick part. This guy was based on Project 2025. Period. There are almost no contradictory notions or philosophies or, anything actionable that has been presented in either of them that contradict at all. They, on the contrary, they interweave, they interlock. They are step by step. They fit like pieces of a puzzle. Project 2025, who our president said he knew nothing about, don't know anything about that. But one of the authors is now the head of the FCC. Brennan Carr. And what he wrote about, he then went about enacting, which is suppression of the media, suppression of opposition voices, attacking liberal media, liberalism, comedians, anybody who wants to speak out, suing, pulling license, threatening to pull license, defunding NPR. Went right about it. Project 2025 lays out very clearly the need to be able to move our reserve forces around as the president sees fit for safety and control. It talks about immigration, mass deportations, border security, pumping billions of dollars into border security, demonizing. It talks about going after political opponents using the DOJ, every single thing that is important, noteworthy in Project 2025 has been enacted actionably here in the United States in this second term. Step by step by step, actor by player, by just disingenuous power broker. And here's well, the national security strategy was clearly not just influenced by, but written to coincide with Project 2025. The signs are everywhere. It's in the language. It's the quiet parts out loud. You know, the strategy explicitly rejects open-ended multilateralism. Okay, in the strategy, it attacks multilateralism. It attacks leaders coming together for the good of the world, give and take, discussions, the betterment of everybody. It rejects it. Everything laid out in terms of foreign policy is transactional. We either take or you give. Those tenets are laid out clearly in Project 2025, calling for the end of U.S. Deference to the UN, to the World Health Organization, to the World Trade Organization. Project 2025 laying out clearly the U.S. moving away from deference and away from involvement with these global entities. America first. Everything transactional. Project 2025 advocates for reclaiming domestic authority from global, quote, norms and treaties. That's what it calls for. Peace through strength. The security strategy, military overmatch, nuclear deference, advanced defense systems. Project 2025 pushes for civilian control over the Department of Defense in alignment with Trump and his corporate billionaires, Lockheed Martin, everybody getting on the same page. Power, strength. No more Department of Defense. It's the Department of War now. Project 2025 talks about reorienting military culture away from a social policy towards war fighting. No more, DEI. No more sending complaints about officers up the chain of command and it hitting a JAG officer. No, there is no more complaints up the chain. There are no more JAG officers. Oh, that old rules of engagement. We're not going to go by those stupid rules of engagement anymore. This brings us to Greenland. You see, in the national security strategy, it clearly lays out, it boasts of, the U.S. retaining the world's largest, most innovative economy, financial system, fastest advancing technological sector, the most capable military. Laughably, it talks about our broad alliance network that we squeeze and give the middle finger to and kick in the teeth every single chance we get. And then the whole ball game is laid out as well, which is strategic geography and abundant natural resources, unquote. Strategic geography and abundant natural resources. That's the ball game right there. That is the whole ball game. This is why Greenland needs to be discussed in a serious tone. We need to take what he's saying seriously. and dig into the possibilities and the options before us, what we might see from his rhetoric that he is spouting right now, even when prior his own officials within the administration and other people, other lawmakers, people saying, no, that's not serious talk. He's just talking. That's not a serious thing. Oh, it's a serious thing. They tried to deflect. These are what the impotent guardrails sound like. In the first term, we had effective guardrails, keeping Trump from some of his more baser instincts and saying them and doing them. Not anymore. This is what a weak, limp, impotent guardrail apparatus sounds like. Hey, no, he's not serious. Meanwhile, he's deadly serious. And there's nobody in the administration to stop him. Only sycophants who will enable him. Let's be clear about that. This strongman tactic, strongman talk and actions, like the arresting of Maduro, this flies in the face of what America used to stand for. It is the talk of dictators. It is the actions and talk of strongmen dictators. Diplomacy and eloquence are gone. They are not Trump's strong suit, diplomacy and eloquence. All of Trump's strength has been handed to him by bought lawmakers and Republicans, by the Supreme Court, by corpo giants, the tech sector, and MAGA. All of Trump's power has been handed to him. And now he's going to go about strategic geography and abundant natural resources how he sees fit. The acquisition of Greenland is now to be considered a goal of this administration. A goal, officially. It is no more rhetoric. It is no more laughable talk. It is a goal. The White House on the 6th, just yesterday, was yesterday the 6th? Yeah. Said, confirmed that using military force to acquire Greenland is, quote, always an option. Okay? That is the national security strategy talking, peace through strength. That is Project 2025 talking. That is strategic geography and abundant resource talking right there. And when I talk about Trump kicking his allies in the teeth, Greenland, Denmark being a NATO nation, his squeeze on NATO has been ongoing. We have seen this. He has been kicking our allies in the teeth every chance he's gotten. His rhetoric surrounding NATO has been inflammatory. Just last year, he got what he wanted when he started talking about NATO nations not giving their fair share, not providing enough support monetarily to the cause. He got what he wanted. The alliance countries in NATO all agreed on a Hague commitment, which is 5% of their GDP be spent on military defense, which is damn near untenable for a lot of countries. And many countries balked, but they agreed to it. But that really strained our relationship with NATO. It strained our relationship with a lot of countries. And now this. The Prime Minister of Denmark has explicitly warned that a U.S. move to seize Greenland in any fashion would mark, quote, the end of the NATO alliance. When I say our strategy is to kick our allies in the teeth, this is what I'm talking about. It is very real. This is a whole new stance on foreign policy that we are seeing play out right now. You got to understand that all of this acquisition of Greenland talk is based on the abundance of minerals, strategic geography, and stiff-arming China and Russia. It's all tied into the same thing, just like this running of Venezuela. We've already laid out how this hurts China, hurts Russia. Peace through strength. This is all tied together. Greenland has deposits of diamonds, graphite, lithium, copper, nickel, gallium, palladium, all critical resources. All critical resources. Right now, China and Russia are responsible for 90% of these resources on the global market. 90%. That is why we're talking about Greenland. Let's make no mistake about it. That is why we are talking about Greenland right now. Now, the Greenland is technically part of the North American continent, okay? It is strategically along the GIUK gap, which is the Greenland, Iceland, and UK Strait of Water, okay, where NATO monitors have said that Russian and China ships have been more frequent in the area as of late. And that is why you hear Trump saying the area is covered in Russia and Chinese ships. Although European officials have responded to that, saying that while Moscow and Beijing have increased their activities in the region, most of that is elsewhere in the Arctic, with no current spike in activity near Greenland specifically. The United States has a base there. We have a history there. We have a Patufic space base there. Patufic space base. We have a long history and strategic defensive alliance in that region since World War II. All of that is going to get thrown out the window. There are other options, and I will lay them out. It doesn't have to be like this. There are other options, but those other options don't include strength through peace through strength, that military dominance, strategic geography, our abundance in minerals. The options that would be legal and acceptable to even the people of Greenland, those aren't real options for Don, not the Department of War, not Pete Hegseth. No, those aren't real options.
We'll be back to break it all down. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. You're back with Brett Breaks Things, where the truth hits harder than the headlines.
I will say this about Greenland. We need Greenland from a national security situation. It's so strategic. Right now, Greenland is covered with Russian and Chinese ships all over the place. We need Greenland from the standpoint of national security. And Denmark is not going to be able to do it, I can tell you. You know what Denmark did recently to boost up security in Greenland? They added one more dog sled. It's true.
Sir,
they thought that was a great move.
What would the justification be for a claim to Greenland? What would the justification
I don't want to talk about Greenland now. I just say this. We need Greenland from the standpoint of national security. And the European Union needs us to have it, and they know that.
He's actually right about that dog sled comment. He's actually right about that. That is something they did. They upgraded their dog sled team in response to some of this pressure. So we need Greenland. What does Carolyn Levitt have to say? I know you love hearing from her. And when are we going to stop hearing from her for just a little while? I know she's pregnant. I would like to think she takes a lengthy and well-deserved maternity leave. Please, so I could just get a break. What does she have to say about this? I want you to listen. This is important. Acquiring Greenland is a national security priority of the United States that would serve as a vital deterrent to Washington's adversaries in the Arctic region. The president and his team are discussing a range of options to pursue this important foreign policy goal, and of course, utilizing the U.S. military is always an option at the commander-in-chief's disposal. Okay, so we are officially talking all about the same thing. Europe, Denmark, U.S. spokespeople, our press secretary, all of us are now talking about the same thing. Just to be clear, we are going to take Denmark or Greenland either by some other means, which Marco Rubio is floating. We're trying to buy it. That's what all this pressure is about, is we're going to buy it. Or by U.S. military action. Those are the options that are actually on the table. Those are the options that are actually on the table. You understand that Greenland has been a part of Denmark for 300 years. From 1953 on, it was an autonomous territory. And then in 2009, it passed its Self-Governing Act, which allowed for greater home rule. Okay, but its responsibility for defense and foreign policy remains with Denmark. Let's be real clear about that. Now, and Trump's push for Greenland, this has been going on for a while. In his first term, he said, hey, I want to buy Greenland. I want Greenland. And Denmark and Danish officials, they kind of reiterated to Don at the time, hey, it's not for sale. We can't even do that. But we understand how important this is to you, Don. We understand. So why don't we bolster U.S. presence in the area, right? And why don't we potentially increase U.S. investment in our mining, right? You want our palladium and our gallium and all these wonderful minerals. Well, why don't we increase your investment into mining these things in our country? And you know what? We'll upgrade our defense. We'll spend an extra. Denmark did $13 billion in defense generally for Denmark and Greenland. We'll do all these things for you, Don. Just please stop talking about taking Greenland from us, please. And then he was gone. It got put on the shelf. That satiated Don for the time being. Him and that old administration that at times was able to show constraint. And then he lost the election, and we haven't talked about it again till now. And now Trump's saying, hey, let's talk about Denmark again in 20 days. That's what he said Monday. Let's talk about Greenland, rather. Let's talk about Greenland again in 20 days. Well, in that time, some people have had a chance to respond to what is going on, including Denmark. I know you want to know, how does Denmark feel about this? How does Greenland feel about this? Obviously, we've heard blurbs from their leaders, but let's really hear what they have to say. The Danish Prime Minister, Mette Frederiksen, has responded directly to the suggestion that the U.S. could use force to seize Greenland. They said, quote, if the United States chooses to attack another NATO country militarily, everything will stop, including NATO, and thus the security that has been provided since the end of World War II. That's pretty heavy-handed. Their deputy speaker, Lars Christensen Brask, a little softer, but not much. He said Denmark was taking Trump's comments seriously, while reiterating that the U.S. and Denmark were long-term partners and allies. Don, don't forget, we're your friends. We're your friends. We have alliances. And they do. We do. And we will get to that. Because there are more options than Don and Carolyn Levin are presenting. They're just not options that they are considering. And Lars is here saying, hey, Don, we're friends, but hey, take it down a notch. We're friends. We can work this out. But he also said, one NATO country doesn't go and require territory of another NATO country. It's unheard of, and it's disrespectful, and it is. And several other countries have joined along. They offered their support. There was a statement issued by Denmark, France, Germany, Italy, Poland, Spain, Great Britain, Canada, and the Netherlands. And that statement said that the inviolability of borders is a universal principle and that Greenland belongs to its people. It is for Denmark and Greenland and them only to decide on matters concerning Denmark and Greenland. That is what that joint statement said. Okay, how does Greenlanders feel about this? About 57,000 people live in Greenland. 90% of them are Inuit, which is Alaskan, Northern Canadian, people from Greenland, people from a little bit of Siberia. Okay? Inuit. That's what most of them are. There was an interesting survey, two surveys actually. One survey conducted by established polling service in Greenland and an established polling service in Denmark. Two separate polls last year. The majority, vast, overwhelming majority, according to both polls, majority of Greenlanders are not interested in being annexed or bought by the United States. They're not interested in being part of the United States at all. So let's just be clear on that, just in case you heard some MAGA outlet running some crazy talking point about, Greenlanders love it. They would love to be part of the United States. Everybody would love to be part of the United States. This is America. Everybody wants to be part of America. Okay, just to be clear, Greenlanders do not. I'm talking overwhelming numbers, like 85%, according to the Greenland poll. 85% of Greenlanders are not interested in being part of the United States. But you know what's funny is that Danish poll, the one from Denmark, that actually showed that overwhelmingly Greenlanders also don't want to be part of Denmark. That muddies things up a little bit. They want their independence completely. How about that? How about that? Now, there were interviews with the Washington Post with officials from Greenland, and they were absolutely adamant that their homeland was not for sale. The territory's leadership has said that they welcome investment from foreign countries, but are not seeking new overseers, unquote. And the Greenland Prime Minister, one Jens Frederik Nielsen, that's the Prime Minister of Greenland, quote, urged his fellow inlanders to stay calm and united. We are not in a situation where we think that there might be a takeover of the country overnight, and that is why we are insisting that we want good cooperation. The situation is not such that the United States can simply conquer Greenland. Whoa, slow down, bud. Stop right there, Jens. You need to adjust your rhetoric a little bit. It is absolutely the situation that the United States could take over Greenland. Let's make absolutely no mistake about that either. Could the United States militarily take over, invade and take over Greenland? Absolutely they could. It's do they want to? That is the question you need to pose to your fellow Greenlanders, Jens. What does America want to do? What do they want to do? Now, here's the thing. Here's the thing about those options I talked about. There are more options than just we buy you or we take you. You see, there's this agreement, the Denmark Defense of Greenland Agreement. It was signed in 1951 between the United States and Denmark. This agreement, it has been amended since 1951, but this agreement, it's little known. This agreement allows the United States free military access to all parts of Greenland. Period. Free military access. They can put as much military in Greenland as they'd like and put it anywhere they like. They simply have to make an agreement with Greenland. And even to that point, they don't really have to make an agreement with Greenland or Denmark. They don't have to talk about it or discuss it, strategy or numbers or where. They actually have the right to just do it and then inform Denmark later. That is what this agreement, that is the freedom that is afforded to the United States in this agreement. It allows them to construct, install, maintain, and operate military bases across Greenland. It also allows them to house personnel, control landings, takeoffs, anchorages, moorings, movements, operations of ships, aircraft, and waterborne craft. All of this is allowed already. All of this is allowed. So while Trump tells you this is of the utmost strategic importance to the United States to control the GUIK and these areas around Greenland and into the Arctic, they could absolutely be doing it right now in full effect without making headlines. They could simply do it. You're worried about our military presence in the area? Then put our military in the area. They can't even technically stop you. You just can't take the country. That's all. And you can't buy it either. You can't buy it either. There was a time when they could have bought it. There was a time when they could have bought it. Before this agreement, before Greenland became an independent territory, back in 1946, Truman tried to buy Greenland from Denmark. Yeah, 100 million in gold was the offer. 100 million in gold was the offer. Denmark politely declined. And that was the end of that. And now, since the agreement and since their autonomy, you can't just buy them. Denmark can't sell them. Greenlanders control their own future. The only thing that Denmark is really in control of in Greenland is their defense. Really. That's it. Can't buy them. Although Rubio's sitting here telling you all of this pressure, all of this rhetoric, we just want to apply it to Denmark because we want to buy it. We don't want to take it. We want to buy it.
Breaking politics, breaking narratives, breaking news. But first, we need a coffee break. You're back with Break Breaks Things, where the truth hits harder than the headlines.
The Denmark defense of Greenland. The Denmark defense of Greenland agreement. That is what we're talking about. That is the way for Trump to get everything he wants. Everything he wants could be solved peacefully. Speak softly and carry a big stick. Nope, we don't do that anymore. We could be speaking softly to Greenland and Denmark. We could be saying, look, just let us move some more troops in there. And we need access to your minerals. And, the deals we make on extracting those minerals, they might not be so Denmark and Greenland friendly. But you're good with it, right? Because then we can stop talking about this ugly stuff we're talking about. Speak softly. The big stick is evident. Maduro just felt it. We've been swinging it around since Trump's second term began. There is no speaking softly, eloquently, diplomatically. It's just swing your stick around. Just swing it around everywhere. And now they're swinging it at Denmark and swinging it at Greenland. And it does not have to be this way. This agreement was made, back in the Cold War. The Germans were in the area. They were setting up meteorological bases in the area. They had a presence in the area. We were afraid they would use it as a staging ground. We put troops in the area. We pushed Germany out. Our troops eventually left. We had some bases in the area. We closed up the bases and we left just the one base. But Tufik, we left just the one base there. The Space Center, Space Base. We could be putting our military anywhere we want. And, it's not just me saying it. Mr. Fredrickson is acknowledging it as well. A lot of people are saying what I'm saying right now, which is this could be done so much easier. This does not need the rhetoric. It does not need the threats. It doesn't need our military to be in any way involved in talks against Greenland and Denmark. It just doesn't have to be this way. Mr. Fredrickson cited the 1951 agreement, saying, we already have a defense agreement between the United Kingdom, or between the kingdom, our kingdom, and the United States today, which gives the United States wide access to Greenland. She urged the United States to stop the threats and said an American attack on Greenland would mean the end of international world order. I mean, according to this 2004 amendment to this agreement, the United States is supposed to consult with Denmark and Greenland before it makes any significant changes in its military operations on the island. That's it. Just tell them what you're doing. Just do it. You want to keep an eye on these Chinese and Russian ships. You want a better security situation. You want more security in the GUIK. Then put more security there. Nobody is stopping you. Nobody is stopping you. Peter Ernstved Rasmussen, which is a Danish defense analyst, said, in practice, if the American forces made reasonable requests, the U.S. would always get a yes. It's a courtesy formula. If the U.S. wanted to act without asking, it could simply inform Denmark that it's building a base or an airfield or a port. That's what infuriates longtime Danish political experts. If Mr. Trump wanted to beef up Greenland security right now, he could. But there has been no such official American request. And it's not just the defense. It's not just the defense. When we talk about the abundance in minerals, Greenland has said repeatedly, we're open for business. You want our minerals, come get our minerals. We know you like it. Come get it. Come make deals, Mr. Art of the Deal. Come make some deals. Put your military wherever you want and come mine whatever you want and let us wet our beak. We don't have the manpower. We don't have the technological advancements. We don't have the experts in the field like you do. We don't have the investment capital that you do. Nobody could pull those minerals out as bigly, strongly, and quickly as you, Mr. Trump. So please, we're open for business. Come do business. No. That's not the Donroe Doctrine. Got to swing that stick around. Why do things the easy way, the diplomatic way? Why? You got the bigliest, strongest military in the world. Why do things the legal, easy way? The way that would make everybody happy. You want the minerals. You want the national security. I assume you want to remain allies with Greenland and Denmark. I assume you don't want NATO to explode. You could have it all, Don. You could have it all. This is Miller's influence. This is Rubio. This is Miller. He would do whatever he suggests they do in these situations. I think we can all come to a consensus that Stephen Miller and Marco Rubio and Steve Bannon, these are the people running our government. Susie Wiles, AI czar David Sachs. These are the people that are really running our country. This is Miller's handiwork. This strategy in Greenland, it's Miller's handiwork. No doubt about it in my mind. No doubt about it. Oh, I mean, we did. Oh, we played it. We played it. We played that a part of that CNN. I'm going to give you more Miller quotables. I'm going to give you more Miller quotables. Now, the Europeans right now have been in talks with American officials, Miller, Rubio, about what's happening in Greenland. And one European diplomat, speaking on the condition of anonymity, of course he is, said those talks have gone from conventional discussion to something much more fraught, much more chaotic, much more threatening. This is from the European diplomats that are trying to talk Trump off this particular ledge. And they're saying this isn't going well, this is going the opposite way. While Rubio is saying all of this pressure, all of this rhetoric, this is just to force a sale. A sale that Denmark can't be a part of. Denmark cannot sell Greenland. Greenland is an autonomous territory. So you've got Leavitt talking about possible U.S. military action. You've got Trump talking about we have to have this strategically. And you've got Rubio talking about a sale. None of that is based in reality. Look, you want to hear from Stephen Miller? Here's Stephen Miller. It has been the formal position of the U.S. government since the beginning of this administration that Greenland should be a part of the United States. Some people in Congress, and I'm going to give you more Miller. But some people in Congress have gotten their hackles up. They have gotten upset about what Miller's saying. They have. There is a Friends of Denmark caucus that came out and made a statement. Talking to Miller, basically. They made a statement. The Friends of Denmark caucus said they condemned Trump's saber rattling, warning that these expansionist impulses were playing into the hands of adversaries in Russia and China. If the message is that we need Greenland, the truth is that we already have access to everything we could need from Greenland, the statement reads. If we want to deploy more forces or build additional missile defense infrastructure in Greenland, Denmark has given us the green light to do so. Our ally has always accommodated us. Threatening an annex unnecessarily undermines the cooperation for no gain. What does Miller have to say? Here's what Miller has to say in response. We live in a world in which you can talk all you want about international niceties and everything else. But we live in a world, in the real world, that is governed by strength, that is governed by force, that is governed by power. These are the iron laws of the world since the beginning of time. That wall is defended by men with guns. Who's going to do that? You? You want me on that wall. You need me on that wall. Now that last bit, that last bit was Jack. You know that. But, I mean, this is all Miller. This is all Miller. Now, Don Bacon, a Republican, called out Miller. He called out Miller. He posted. He said, Miller's comments are really dumb. How do you really feel, Don? He said there is no upside in demeaning our friends, but it is causing wounds that will take time to heal. How do I know Miller has a hand in all of this and feels like he has free reign to say whatever the hell he wants and tell us the quiet part out loud like he just did? The peace through strength part like he just did? Because he has the backing of the White House at all times. And when he comes out and he says crazy crap like that to Jake Tapper, the White House is quickly in front of a microphone, either Abigail Jackson or Carolyn Levitt, whoever it may be, quickly gets to a microphone and defends him. This time it was Carolyn Levitt. The president has been driving all policy, and Stephen faithfully executes what the president wants, whether it's immigration, crime, trade, Greenland, or Venezuela. I submit it's the exact opposite. I submit that Trump executes Miller's policies. That's what I submit is happening. Because this president is in serious cognitive decline. He don't speak so good no mo. He doesn't think very well or quickly anymore. One minute he's on drugs doing his double pump action. The next minute he's literally falling asleep in front of his cabinet and the leaders of the free world and everybody else. Don is a failure at everything he's ever done except the grift. And this portion of the administration isn't about the grift. This portion of the administration is about the power and the money. Taking it from others, other countries. We don't have to, this isn't about, pardoning, the founder of Binance so we can move our $2 billion crypto investment through his exchange and then deposit it into our pockets, all behind the American people's back. That's not what this is. So this is more Miller's purview. This is foreign policy with a giant cudgel. And then saying the quiet part out loud to Jake Tapper. And the White House is here for it. The White House is here for it. And I'm going long. I will be back. Probably going real long. I'll be back.
It's time for a quick break, then we break some more. You're listening to Brett Breaks. You're back with Brett Breaks Things, because democracy doesn't defend itself.
I want to emphasize that question from CNN. The question's never asked how much does it cost when they're in the Mediterranean or the Red Sea or the Indian Ocean or the Pacific. But now that they're in our hemisphere, on a counter-cartel mission or ensuring that an indicted individual comes to justice, now you're asking the question of cost. It's a disingenuous question to begin with. You're trying to find any angle possible to undermine the success of one of the most historic military missions the world has ever seen. The level of sophistication that Senate just was briefed on, and the House was briefed on, a classified level, is something only the United States of America can accomplish. The world is taking notice of that. Certainly Venezuela is taking notice of that. And it continues because two oil tankers, overnight, were seized by the United States of America, stateless or...
Oh, man. Okay. Oh, Pete. That was one of the most successful, what did you just say, Pete? Military operations in human history? First of all, first of all, you and your government told me that was a law enforcement operation. You said specifically it was not a military operation. They can't get their lies straight. Second, and more bigly, your dear leader just months ago told us the Iran strike was the greatest military operation in human history. I've got news for you. Much better men and a much better administration actually put together the greatest operation in military history. It's called D-Day. That is the greatest military operation in human history. How dare you? And you're a liar. How dare you? And you're a liar. You and your boss. You and your boss. Oh, and by the way, talking about Stephen Miller and this all being his grand design, hot off the presses, a 13-page article, hot off the presses, thank you, Scotty, a 13-page article by The Atlantic, The Wrath of Stephen Miller, detailing how Stephen Miller is running our government. Let me just give you the first paragraph, and I'll do my dive, I promise you, but let me just give you the first paragraph. Stephen Miller runs his daily 10 a.m. conference calls, even on Saturdays, less like a government advisor and more like a wartime general. His is the dominant voice as he plays the role of browbeater, inquisitor, and bully. He accepts no excuses and entertains no dissent. Oh my God. Where does this go? Oh man. That's what I'm talking about. That's the good. Miller's Donroe Doctrine, right? Can I just say that? Can I just say Miller's Donroe Doctrine at this point? And Rubio. I'll give you your credit, Rubio. You got a big hand in this. Miller's Donroe Doctrine and Venezuela. All right, we just laid out exactly how the verbatim the words in our Donroe Doctrine, our national security strategy, relates to what exactly is happening in Greenland right now. Strategic geography. Abundant minerals, stemming the tide of power from Russia and China. Sorry, Greenland, you've just become a part of the plan. Venezuela, you're a part of our plan as well. The Donroe Doctrine explicitly deny non-hemispheric competitors like China, like Russia, like Iran. Control assets in the region. I'm speaking directly from our Donroe Doctrine, from our national security strategy. I'm speaking directly from it. Anti-narcotic strategy. Removal of Maduro while you pardon Juan Orlando Hernandez, a man who moved 400 plus tons of cocaine through the United States. He gets pardoned. Maduro, he gets thumped on the head with the big stick. Just to be clear. Energy dominance. Hemispheric competitors out. Traffickers attacked. War on cartel continues. Military presence. Readjustment of military philosophy. Our Department of War to respond to urgent threats in our hemisphere, the Donroe Doctrine. And let me tell you something. The Donroe Doctrine definitely includes Cuba and Colombia. You are both on notice. You are both on the menu. Sorry, you find yourself in our hemisphere. And you are on notice. President Trump has already hinted that Colombia and Cuba could be next, describing Colombia's leadership as, quote, a threat to the U.S. anti-drug efforts. I'll tell you this. Cuba, as far as Cuba's concerned, their proximity is a problem. I saw 13 Days. My wife made me watch it. I'm glad she did. It scared the crap out of me. The Cuban Missile Crisis scared the crap out of all of us. And national security in terms of Cuba is a priority. It is something that should be closely monitored, and it's something that should evolve. And I don't have a big problem with our military being on high alert in terms of Cuba as far as national defense goes. That I don't have a big problem with. Colombia, however, I'm going to tell you a couple little factoids about Colombia. Along with Trump accusing Colombia of facilitating drug trafficking efforts in Latin America, I mean exactly what he said about Maduro, you're on notice. Colombia also has the largest coal reserves in Latin America. Trump loves the coal miner. Remember that? He's going to make coal great again. Remember that? Colombia has modest oil reserves, certainly not a major global power in the oil market, but a moderate global power in the oil market. They have their own reserves. Colombia is abundant in gold. abundant. And it is extremely abundant in emeralds. I think it's responsible for over 90% of the emerald trade globally. Extremely abundant. So Colombia, it's important for you to understand that you fit directly in the planning, you fit directly in the priorities and the planning of the Donroe Doctrine. You are being accused of facilitating drugs. You have abundant minerals and resources and oil. You have strategic defense geography. Uh-oh. You're hitting a trifecta of what's important to the Donroe Doctrine. You are absolutely on the menu. You are absolutely on the menu, Cuba. Colombia. Just know that. Just know that. Now, Don has told us time and again how he feels about the oil in Venezuela. Focusing again on Venezuela. And he's talked about these sentiments. He's held these thoughts. He's expressed these sentiments prior to all of this. Let's listen to him just a little while ago. Just a few. When was this? Oh, just a little bit ago. Here's Trump equating the Iraq situation and their oil with what we're doing now in Venezuela. Listen to this guy.
When we got out, we should have taken the oil. They're talking about a sovereign country, Iraq. Crooked as hell. I didn't want to go into Iraq. We got there. I said, keep the oil. They didn't keep the oil. These people don't know what they're doing. You know, in the old days, you're in a war. To the victor belong the spoils, right? I said, keep the oil. Keep the oil. Keep the oil. Don't let somebody else get it. If they had listened to me then, we would have had the economic benefits of the oil. I've always said, shouldn't be there, but if we're going to get out, take the oil.
Spoils of war. Take the oil. Keep the oil. That's what he just said, right? Said time and time again in front of different crowds, we should have kept the oil. It's our spoils of war. Well, now Venezuela is going to gift us 50 million barrels of oil right now. New development. Let's put on hold for just a second Trump's demands, needs, wants for U.S. oil companies to invest once again in Venezuelan pumping. Forget that for a second. And whatever U.S. friendly deals come from that. Apart from that, right now, Trump is getting his spoils of war, what he just said. Sometimes he says the quiet parts out loud. We are getting 50 million barrels of oil gifted to us from Venezuela. Right now. Right now. President Trump said Tuesday that Venezuela's interim authorities will give the U.S. between 30 million and 50 million barrels of sanctioned oil, with proceeds overseen by the White House to benefit both countries. We'll see about that. On a Truth Social post, he said that he directed Energy Secretary Chris Wright to carry out his plan for the oil to be taken by storage ships and transported to the United States. Trump said this oil will be sold at its market price and that the money will be controlled by me as the President of the United States to ensure that it is used to benefit the people of Venezuela and the United States. He said we should have taken the spoils of war in Iraq. He's determined not to make the same mistake. He has now claimed his spoils of war in Venezuela. But we're not at a war. This is the spoils of a law enforcement action. But Hegseth just went on TV and said this was the most brilliant, successful military operation in human history. It is just a fire hose of lies from these people. They cannot keep them straight. They are not politicians. They are not orators. They are not eloquent. They are not diplomatic. They are not measured or judicious with their wording. They just lie, get their feelings hurt, attack reporters, lie some more, contradict each other, and lie more with recording equipment working properly. Cameras and microphones all working properly to record what you say and do, and they just lie and lie and lie and lie. And the left can sit here and get as triggered as it wants and get upset as it wants because we see it clearly and we hear the lies and we ingest them clearly, immediately. We hear the lies for what they are. Meanwhile, they think MAGA and Republicanism in general is just too damn stupid to get hip to all the damn lies that they are feeding you. While you do your gymnastics and go to the water cooler and defend this and say, how dare leftists get mad that Maduro's out of power? Because they can't keep more than one thought in their head at a time. And the cognitive dissonance is so very real when you confront them with facts. So now, Trump gets his spoils of law enforcement action. 50 million barrels of oil. All right, well, let's talk about this oil for just a second. This oil. The value of the barrels is estimated between 1.5 billion and 2.5 billion based on today's benchmark for heavy crude. And that's what Venezuela has, the heavy crude. The heavy crude. Right? And other countries whose crude is lighter and they want to make it a little heavier, they send their oil over to Venezuela, like Russia, like Iran. They send their oil over to Venezuela and they mix them. They mix the heavy with the light and they get something they can sell more profitably. It's the heavy crude in Venezuela. And there are companies here in the States who have refineries that are able to process heavy crude and are more than willing and able and delighted to do this for Trump and the administration and the American people. This 50 million barrels is about 15% of all oil exports in Venezuela in 1 year. 15%. And it's going to take about 25 tankers to transport all of this. Non-sanctioned, of course. U.S. approved tankers. None of those shadow fleet tankers like the one Hegseth just referred to that we captured two. And he is right. We did capture two tankers, by the way. We did. One actually ran from us. And it was running from us to try to meet up with a Russian submarine escort. And it went to great lengths to hide its identity and then ultimately painted a Russian flag crudely on the side of its ship to try to signify to the U.S., don't mess with this. This is a Russian ship. And when seized, it was empty. That's the story we're being told. When seized, it was empty. It never made it to that Russian submarine escort. It never made it there. And when we got our hands on it, it was empty. So, from my estimation, it either, one, was coming from Venezuela, dropped off a whole bunch of its lighter oil to be mixed with the Venezuelan oil, and now with the increasing threat of the U.S. military said, let's just get out of Dodge without our mixture. Let's just go. Or it could be a bit of a show. A bit of a show by Russia, a bit of a show by the United States. Maybe the United States knew that ship was already empty and knew that if it seized a Russian ship, one, we could be bigly, strongly, quickly. Look how effective our blockade is. Look how seriously we take our sanctions. Russia, get out of here. But two, by taking an empty ship, we don't cause an international crisis with Russia over billions of dollars worth of oil that we just took from them. On the front end, we look bigly, strongly. On the back end, Russia didn't really lose much. We seized another ship. As well. So two ships were seized just recently. That is what he's referring to. And Hegseth just can't understand why the U.S. media just is not totally on board with everything this administration does. How dare you? We just upended a illegitimate dictator drug dealer, and we're seizing sanctioned ships, and we're putting the screws to Russia. And here this media is talking about international law and parsing words about what our operation actually was and all of these things. Just radical leftism that is destroying America. So, on Friday, Trump will sit down with U.S. oil executives. We told you this was going to happen. We told you it was already happening already. On Friday, Trump is going to try to convince the executives of Conoco, Phillips, Chevron, and ExxonMobil, and a few other domestic producers to spend their money and time and efforts and people's time to rebuilding the Venezuelan oil export industry. I submit that these oil executives aren't going to meet with Trump. Trump is going to go beg them with his hat in hand and your money along with it. A briefcase full of your money. Because he already said he's willing to subsidize their investment. So now it's our investment. ConocoPhillips, Exxon, they got kicked out when Chavez took over. Well, they didn't get kicked out. They decided the deals were untenable, and they left. And now Trump's asking them to go right back in. Spend your time, spend your money. Oh, you won't? Well, then spend your time and spend the American people's money. And that is what they're going to go talk about. Trump is going to go beg these U.S. oil executives to get on board. Otherwise, he looks like a bit of a jackass. If the Venezuelan oil export industry does not uptick drastically, right? If there isn't American companies actively drilling there, there's less incentive to list some of these sanctions, less incentive to reestablish some of these trade routes with Venezuelan oil. If we're not pumping it, they'll continue to try, and they'll continue to try to sell it to China and Russia and Iran at a discount under sanctions around a U.S. blockade. This whole thing is very messy, and it will continue to be messy unless the U.S. oil companies get on board right now. So they're gonna hear Trump's pleas on Friday. They just have to travel to Trump to hear them. But make no mistake, these oil barons, these giants of industry, they know exactly the position they are in, and they intend to fully utilize their position and get your money, my money, your money, our money. Then they'll invest, sure. Then they'll spend the time to make the billions. No problem. No problem. Senator Ed Markey, on Tuesday, said some interesting things. See, he wants to know directly from Chevron CEO Mike Wirth any details involving Trump's plans for Venezuela and whether Mike had any influence on those plans. Were you told? Did you have any communications with Trump before the attack? Did you coordinate with Trump in any way before this attack? Did you incentivize, advise, coerce Trump in any way to make this attack? Because don't forget, Chevron is the one last company standing, and their deal with Venezuela sucks. They decided it was tenable, where the other companies decided it was untenable. They decided it was tenable, and they decided to continue to do business with the Venezuelan government at a severe discount, a huge hit to their profits. Almost not worth it, but they stayed. And possibly no one, other than Paul Singer, no one is situated to make more money and have more influence in the Venezuelan oil industry than Mike Wirth. Nobody stands to gain more from this, possibly, this Maduro unseating and a very favorable Delcy Rodriguez to deal with, than Mike Wirth, CEO of Chevron. And Ed Markey and other senators and other lawmakers, they want a little bit of clarity on his influence in the situation. And they don't just want clarity from him. He's also asking for clarity from Exxon, from Conoco, from Citgo, everybody. He wants to know who knew what and when. Not convinced that the billions and billions of dollars that these people stand to make are unrelated to the Maduro unseating. Not convinced. He needs convincing that they were unrelated. Your new windfall, your potentially billions of dollars in profits, not being coordinated with Maduro's ouster. I feel like Markey I think that dog will hunt. You feel me? I think that dog will hunt. I think there may be some questions to answer. I like where Markey's head's at. Don't forget Mike Wirth. He visited with Trump 4 times prior to this invasion. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Law enforcement action. Oh, wait, what's that, Pete Hegseth? Military operation? Whatever it is. Mike Wirth visited Trump multiple times. Multiple times. Convinced Trump that Chevron was the last man standing, the last, defense against China dominance in oil and energy here in our hemisphere. Don, the Donroe Doctrine. I'm a key part of your Donroe Doctrine. I'm a key part of it. You have to extend my license. While you're saying Maduro's illegitimate, while you and Biden and the international community all agreed that Maduro was an illegitimate president, and you and your own DOJ has an indictment as he's the leader of the Cartel de las Solas, and he's trafficking fentanyl and cocaine and human trafficking. All while you're claiming all of this, Trump has allowed Wirth to keep his license in Venezuela to pump oil. The Cuban-American Lawmaking Caucus, they railed against it. Cuban Americans, Venezuelan Americans, they hated it. They felt it propped up and legitimized a dictator, an illegitimate regime, and yet the oil kept flowing. Wirth got his way time and time again. Did he ultimately get his way here as well? How much did he help? How much did he know? We'll see if Markey gets his answers. I appreciate y'all hanging out. We will be back tomorrow, and we're going to dive into how Stephen Miller is actually running our government.